I'm Shannon Perry. I'm the city's Chief Sustainability Officer.
Clove Galilee, Project Support Assistant for OSE.
Chico Manarola, Electrification Program Manager at Clean Power Alliance.
Julianne Nelson, Senior Program Manager of Grid Management at Clean Power Alliance.
Kendall Ascension, Legislative and Government Affairs Manager at Clean Power Alliance.
Elias Platt-Bermeo, Sustainability Analyst, Office of Sustainability and the Environment, the City of Santa Monica.
Olivia Walker, Commissioner.
Alex Tower, Commissioner.
David Pettit, Commissioner.
Ashley Olson, Commissioner.
Judy Abdo, not Commissioner. And this is Ginger. Her first meeting.
Okay. Sometimes my tap isn't sufficient to get this thing turned on. Okay, so thank you everyone for coming. And if we could just take a moment to get public input for non-agenda items. If there's anybody who's interested in speaking on non-agenda items from the public, I just ask that you go to the microphone, and hopefully your tapping is better than mine. Okay, it looks like there's nobody interested in saying non-agenda anything. Okay, so let's move on. Public input for agenda items under special agenda items, closed session, or consent calendar only. If you're interested in a comment, again, the microphone. Okay, moving on. Special agenda items, none. Let's move on. Wow, this is going great. I'm rocking it. All right, let's look at how about the consent calendar. All items are considered in one motion unless somebody pulls it. So is there a commissioner who would like to pull anything from the consent calendar? Oh, okay, I need to carry it with me so I can look around. Okay, so we're looking at approval of the minutes and that's it. So thank you, yes, thank you. So we have a motion and a second from Ashley. All those in favor? Aye. Okay, it passes unanimously. Okay, public input on remaining agenda items. Again, the microphone, tap. Nope. Okay, moving on. We're on item 6, continued items, Clean Power Alliance update. You guys are up. Thank you.
Let's see if I can be tall. All right. Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Commission, for having us back again. I'm, again, Kendall Ascension, Legislative and Government Affairs Manager with Clean Power Alliance, and I'll let my colleagues introduce themselves one more time before we go through.
Hi, everyone. I'm Julianne Nelson. I'm the Senior Program Manager for the Grid Management Programs at Clean Power Alliance.
Chico Manarola, Electrification Program Manager at Clean Power Alliance.
Great. So we had a wonderful time speaking with you all last June. I believe it was July, and really excited to come back with a couple of new programs, as well as some of the ways that we are really working closely with the City of Santa Monica to help achieve your sustainability goals. I am also going to ask that we keep questions to the end, that we can get through all of the information and then make sure that we can really dive into your questions. So again, another quick overview. I'm aware that we have at least one new commissioner, so I'm going to give a quick overview of CPA, background on CCAs very quickly, and then we can dive in. So Clean Power Alliance, we are California's largest community choice aggregator. Community choice aggregators have been around for about 14 years, and we were enabled by legislation to provide electricity and provide choice to residents and businesses within communities. We are able to help communities meet their climate action goals, provide additional transparency and accountability. So what does that accountability look like? It's really, we are a joint powers authority. So we have 35 members from jurisdictions throughout Los Angeles and Ventura counties. And again, that accountability comes from having one of your elected members serve on our board. And we also have additional alternate members who are either a part of the city or a well-respected citizen. So we serve more than 3 million or residents and businesses through 1 million customer accounts. We are the #1 green provider of energy in the United States for the 2nd year running, something that we are very excited about, and something that really sets us apart from the Southern California Edison is that after our revenues, after we pull out our cost for power, operations, et cetera, are pooled into and invested into our programs and procurement, and that's really, the bread and butter of what we're going to be getting into this evening. And then just how we operate in general. So we are a not-for-profit electricity provider. We provide communities choice so they can choose a number of different power products through us or elect to go back to Southern California Edison. We purchase the energy on behalf of our communities, and then we utilize Southern California Edison's infrastructure to deliver those electrons to our customers. That is presented to everyone as a single monthly bill where our generation charges replaces Southern California Edison's generation charges, and you're still seeing their delivery charges as well. We're not an added bill, we are simply replacing that charge. And so our programs are really informed by our board. Our local programs were adopted in 2020, and it was developed by our board of directors and really incorporated a significant amount of feedback from our communities to create the programming that supports the community's needs, which are the issues that were identified here. So resiliency and grid management, building transportation and electrification, and local procurement. We expanded the action plan in 2023 to go through 2025, and we are investing about $200 million throughout our communities through 14 different programs. These programs, again, were designed to support everyone whom we serve, so our residents, small business customers, and our member agencies. Some of these things like peak management and power response can support residential, commercial, and partner communities. However, others like PowerShare, our forthcoming air conditioning rebate, and our solar and storage program for single-family homes, as well as the additional funds that we provide for our Sun Storage rebate to low-income families, are really designed to bring a lot of our low-income community members along with us on this clean energy journey. Tonight, we're going to be diving into our EV Smart Charge program, our Energy Team program, which are going to be more centered on our residents and small businesses. And then we're going to look at our Reach Code program, Power Ready 2, and Energized Communities, which we're working closely with Santa Monica City staff on. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Jillian.
Great. So I'm so excited to talk about the EV Smart Charge program tonight. It is a brand new program. We just launched it in January. And so the purpose of the program is to... So the purpose of the program is to support the growing adoption of EVs in Los Angeles and Ventura counties. We're actually projecting that by 2045, there's going to be 1.2 million EVs in CPA territory. So with the increase of EV ownership comes an increase in charging and a need for more energy to support that charging. And so the graphic here on the slide, this shows what we're expecting in terms of the load attributed to EV charging. Within the next 5 years, we actually anticipate that the percent of the load attributed to EV charging will be more than double what we see today, which would then be 10% of CPA's load by 2030 and nearly 23% of CPA's load by 2040. And so much of that energy use happens at times when energy prices are high or the greenhouse gas emissions are also high. So supporting optimization of EV charging is going to be really important. It's important now, but it'll definitely be important, as you can see, in the near future. Great. So a little bit about EV Smart Charge itself. So EV Smart Charge is a smart charging program available to CPA residential customers who charge at home. It optimizes charging to automatically occur during off-peak times when electricity demand and prices are lower. The program offers incentives to participants for allowing us to automatically shift their charging load to times, that's either off-peak or lower priced. And that's through vehicle telematics or through charging equipment. So we're able to automatically do that and optimize the load. In addition to incentives, smart charging also helps participants save money on their electric bill because we're ultimately prioritizing the shift to a more low-cost time. And just a little bit about incentives. So we do offer a one-time enrollment incentive to customers. It does vary based on the type of vehicle or the charging equipment you have. And then there is a monthly incentive that's also earned. And so to earn that monthly incentive, all you have to do is complete 5 smart charging sessions each month, and that will accumulate in the pretty cool app that we have for all of our participants. Okay. So that's just a little bit about the program. I just want to say thank you again for allowing me to speak today about this. I'd like to encourage you, if you do have an EV, please check out our webpage. We do have a list of all of our eligible vehicles on that list and charging equipment. So if you are an EV driver and you have an eligible vehicle, please sign up, and we'd love to hear your thoughts on the program and the app. And spread the word to your friends in the community and those that might be interested in a new program.
Great. Hey, everyone. Chico Manarola again. I'm going to talk to you about Energy Team. This is another relatively new program from Clean Power Alliance. We just launched in September. Let's go to that. So first of all, what is Energy Team? It is an on-call service for folks who are interested in electrification projects for their home or small business. And you can call between working hours during the day, during the week. We also have a chat service, and you can also text. A chat service through online texting and by email. And the goal is to be able to provide web-based and on-call support for folks who are interested in electrification projects. And there's a lot of reasons why we decided to launch this program. First and foremost is just anecdotal evidence we had from our own staff who are trying to do these projects, and they were looking for resources and couldn't find them. So, what are the technologies available? What kinds of appliances are there? Who do I ask questions to? If I'm handier and I want some guidance on how to wire something, for example, is there a service for that? Or, is it YouTube? And the other big one was lack of awareness. So there's a lot of available incentives in the market right now. And one of the primary goals of this program is to maximize our customers being able to get those rebates and incentives. There are questions often about which rebates can be stacked, and our Energy Team services help people figure out the total amount of rebates they can get for their projects. And then another one is prioritization. So there's a lot of options people have to electrify their homes, and everyone has a budget, right? So what we do is when you call, you can do what we call a virtual energy assessment, and we'll walk through your home, look at what kinds of appliances you currently have, look at your panel, and help you decide, based on your budget, what will be the biggest bang for your buck. And oftentimes, it will be your space heater or water heater, but people often, the first things they think of are cooking. And then how to find a local contractor and how to find rebates. So we have, our Energy Team cannot tell you what to do. We can help you make decisions about what kinds of projects you might want to implement at your home or small business. And we can help you with resources to find a contractor to do that. And we point people to the Switches On, which has not only a pretty exhaustive list of the rebates that are available in your area, but it also has a a zip code location tool that you can find contractors that are have gone through the tech process and are available to do electrification projects. And then for CPA, you know, we have a lot of programs. We've launched, geez, I don't even know how many programs the last year, probably at least 4. And so this service helps people find CPA programs, rebates that they are eligible for, whether it's Power Response, Smart Charge, our battery storage program, and others. So who is eligible for Energy Team? As I've mentioned, it's geared towards small businesses and residents, but it's eligible for anyone in that residential sector. So either if you're a homeowner, if you're a renter, we have guidance to help you there. Now, obviously, if you're a renter, you know, you may have to do some additional work with your property owner to do some of those updates, but there are still things you can do if you're a renter, and there are specific rebates that are available to you as a renter. And then we have a cutoff for small businesses, and it's based on energy usage. And how do you know if you're eligible? So no one has to know. In fact, we'll get people calling who don't know if they're a CPA customer. You know, they're just calling because I heard about this program. How do I learn more? So what we suggest to everyone is, you know, if you hear about the program, give us a call. And we can verify folks on the phone or through chat or email. Verify that you're a CPA customer, verify that you're in one of these residential or small business groups, and then provide services accordingly. So you might have to click through a couple of these. I tried to get fancy here and it just makes this more complicated. So this is just a graphical version of the different kinds of services Energy Team provides. So, you know, as I've mentioned, there are appliances. It helps you find what appliance might be right for you. Gives you resources there. You can access it over the phone or on the web. We just launched this last week, some self-service tools for folks. So if you want to figure out, like, how much is it going to cost me to install a hot water heater or a heat pump hot water heater or a heat pump furnace, you can go to these tools and it will help you figure out, based on your CPA rate, how much that will cost you and what the cost savings will be over time. And we have a similar tool for EVs and EV charging. So if you're interested in buying an EV or you're thinking of installing EV charging at your home, this will help you pick models and it will help you with the pricing. And similarly for rooftop solar, it'll help you with those estimates. So we're really excited about that. Again, they just launched last week. And I've already talked a little bit about virtual energy assessments. This is one of, like, the core services of the program. It's you know, you can call and you can do a virtual energy assessment in the moment, or you can schedule one for down the road. But basically, this is someone on the phone with you on your smartphone or laptop walking through your home. You can take pictures of your panel, you can take pictures of your water heater, and they will store that information and provide you with an energy plan at the end of that, an assessment that summarizes all the appliances that are relevant that you have in your home, what your panel size is, and what your different options are on a low electrification budget or a full electrification budget, and any customized version in between. And then again, as I've mentioned, state and federal rebates and resources, finding a contractor, and other CPA programs. So, you know, this service is for many different customer types, and the resources we provide are customized to those different groups. So, you know, I've already mentioned that for renters, this might be a slightly more complicated process because you have to talk to the property owner, but there are rebates specifically for in-unit renters that we can point you to, and specific financing options for renters. And likewise, for disadvantaged and low-income folks, this program is geared to everyone in our territory. But there are specific rebates that we can provide for disadvantaged low-income folks, and CPA has a number of programs that we can point people towards. And then for small businesses, participation looks pretty much the same, but, you know, they will have different kinds of needs and different sizing of equipment. This program, our customer base is 97% residential, so we really expect this to lean very heavily on renters and homeowners. But we do expect some small businesses to participate as well. All right.
Great. And now we're going to transition to the way CPA and Santa Monica are working together to support your sustainability goals. So with that, I will turn it both over to Shiko and Elias to discuss our REACH codes.
Shiko, did you have anything to start with?
I'll just start that, this has been a very productive partnership with Santa Monica. We launched our REACH Code program in 2023, and the day before we kicked it off for those of you who are familiar with CRA versus Berkeley, California Restaurant Association versus Berkeley, it happened like the day before we kicked off this program. So it has been a long time sort of developing and gestating, but Santa Monica was the first city to pass a new construction REACH code through our program. And we are also working with the city on an existing building REACH code. And if you want to, you can talk about all the details there on those REACH codes. But it's been a very productive partnership, and we just recently renewed the program for 2025 and half of 2026. And what we've seen is a very large interest from member agencies, whereas people were very hesitant after that litigation from California Restaurant Association. Now folks are very, very interested. And we've got 6 member agencies that we're going to be partnering with on existing buildings, which is very exciting because that's where sort of the bulk of your emissions reductions are going to be. And we had 11 member agencies contact us with interest for new construction REACH codes. So anyway, so I'll hand it over if you want to talk about any of the details, but this has been a great process, and we're really excited to continue working with Santa Monica on their existing building REACH code.
Yeah, thank you. Elias Platt-Bermeo with the City of Santa Monica. I think you hit the nail on the head with the fact that it's been a really productive partnership. And just zooming out for a second, everything up through this slide was the many programs that CPA has launched that are customer facing, but the other exciting half of being a CPA member agency, like Kendall mentioned up at the top, is that dollars are invested back into member agencies to do transformative climate and sustainability work. So we'll go through a couple of those programs, this REACH Code program being one of them, which is the ways in which Santa Monica is benefiting from being a part of the Clean Power Alliance. And so the REACH Code program is a big example of that. We know that the building sector in Santa Monica is a significant chunk of emissions. It's about 1/3 of emissions as of our most recent GHG inventory. And we like to think of ourselves as trailblazers in the policy space. We had our new construction REACH code that we had to then pivot based on that lawsuit, the CRA lawsuit. But this program with CPA has really helped us find the next best thing, which is the energy performance approach REACH code, which we have spoken to this commission about and then got adopted by council last November. So that's sort of taking care of the new construction front. And then the other half is existing buildings, which are a much bigger chunk of emissions, or will be in the future, compared to new construction that may occur. And CPA and their consultants at TRC have been really helpful in providing that analysis of helping the city figure out what the best policy levers to pull are in the existing building space, and helping us craft a policy that can stand up against potential litigation. So we're excited to keep digging into that, and before that ever comes to council, it will come back to this body so that we can give you a more fleshed out update on what policy we think makes sense for Santa Monica. Oh, and then the last piece of that is just CPA has also given us financial awards for being a trailblazer in that space. So we've received $25,000 just for committing to adopting those REACH codes, and should receive more money when we do bring that existing building REACH code to council, hopefully later this year. Kendall, I think we can go to the next one. Yeah. So I just want to talk at a high level about some of the other programs that are examples of CPA investing back into Santa Monica and then other CPA member agencies. We're not requesting any action or formal action from the commission tonight, but there are some things here that we just want to keep you apprised of because we've referenced them in the past and may come back to you with more fleshed out updates as these programs get developed. But one really exciting one that launched recently and we plan to participate in is the Power Ready program. It's a program that CPA is running to boost resilience of critical facilities for member agencies. So all member agencies of the Clean Power Alliance are able to identify and put forth 10 sites in their community, whether they're city-owned or community sites, for free consulting services for resilience infrastructure. So solar, rooftop solar or carport solar, and then battery energy storage systems, so that in the event of a power outage in Santa Monica or anything like that, those systems or those facilities can continue to perform critical operations, whether that's city services or community serving functions. And we're just in the early stages of this now, but we've been in talks with CPA staff and staff in the city and the community about what sites to put forth. So plan to develop that list of 10 sites between city-owned critical facilities and then hopefully community facilities like within the school district or SMC, the YMCA, Red Cross, buildings and sites that we know serve critical functions in emergency situations. So the deadline to submit those sites is April 30th. We haven't finalized that list, but I envision there will be a more fleshed out update we can give the commission in a number of months as we hopefully get the analysis back from CPA and fingers crossed can move forward with a few of those projects.
I'm going to jump in really quickly here. One of the things, I know we discussed Power Ready in its original iteration last time, but I think Elias hit on a really important point, which is this Power Ready 2 piece is really where we're able to also incorporate the community sites. So that's something we were unable to do last time, and we're really excited for that as a new addition in this iteration. I'll turn it back over to you.
Great, thank you. And so beyond that, the other sort of bucket of programs that we're really excited about is under this umbrella of energized communities. And there's really two components of that program. The first was blanket funds for every CPA member agency, up to $250,000 to tackle one of three main issue areas that CPA is focused on. Santa Monica has chosen to use that $250,000 to focus on our municipal fleet electrification, because we know that there are state requirements for converting our city fleet to all electric vehicles in a pretty short time span. And it's a big task, but we're really grateful to CPA for their support in that. So that $250,000 is going to help with the consulting services to develop a fleet transition plan and then charging readiness assessments for sites that charge city fleet vehicles. With any remaining funding as well from that $250,000, we can actually move forward with implementation of some of those projects. So either purchasing vehicles or doing some of the actual projects to bring in charging infrastructure to city sites. And then the other half of that program, which just recently came to fruition, is the Innovation Grant Program. So whereas the Pathways to Electrification program was obligated dollars for every CPA member agency, the Innovation Grant was a competitive grant that CPA hosted where they were able to fund either 4 or maybe 4 cities to who presented an innovative climate or sustainability related idea. And in Santa Monica, we've had a lot of talks about the unique challenge that we face, which is 70% of residents in Santa Monica are renters, but they're so often left out of the clean energy transition just because of the complexities that come from trying to convert renter-occupied buildings to all electric. And how do we support those folks in being part of the clean energy transition? So we put forth a proposal which was just actually adopted by the CPA board last week or a couple weeks ago to develop a direct-to-renter program, which we're calling the Renters Energy and Cooling / Heating Program, or the REACH program, which is direct-to-renter clean energy appliances. Hopefully, or the idea there is to forego any complex involvement with landlords and just basically distribute things like portable heat pumps, which can act as air conditioners and heaters, to renters without needing to go through lengthy building upgrade processes or get landlords involved, but appliances that can plug directly into a standard socket. So portable heat pumps, portable batteries to boost grid resilience and hopefully allow those renters to charge devices at off-peak times and then discharge them at peak times. So saving them money and supporting grid resilience. And then we're considering including other appliances that can increase in-home comfort like fans or air purifiers. We had that idea pre-fires, but I think in the wake of previous events this year, that's proven to be something that we want to put more attention to, is gearing up our renter population to be more safe in the event of poor air quality in Santa Monica. So we're at the early stages of developing that program, but we plan to partner with the Energy Coalition to develop it and really flesh it out. They have done a similar pilot program in the city of Pomona at a smaller scale, but they've been looking to ramp up, and collectively we think Santa Monica is a great testbed for that kind of project. And it achieves a lot of the goals of our climate action and adaptation plan by helping increase resilience of our most vulnerable communities, and then hopefully get those folks using their fossil fuel appliances less often. So just to summarize, we're really excited about the ways that CPA is investing back into Santa Monica, and I think there's going to be a lot more updates on this front as we flesh out all of the programs that we're participating in.
And that brings us to the presentation portion of our conversation, but we're happy to open it up to some questions. And I'm going to sit back down.
So does any commissioner have? Okay, go ahead, Dave.
Hi, thanks for your presentation about heat pumps. Thanks. I have a number of friends with single-family homes who've switched to heat pumps, and I get nothing but complaints about they're getting killed on rates compared to gas heating. Do you guys have any comment about that?
I don't have any direct comment other than, heat pumps are very efficient. They use less energy, but sometimes it depends on the price of that energy for whether or not it's going to be more expensive. We do have some ways of helping folks, especially who are in disadvantaged communities or low income, to help reduce their rates. I don't know if that would be applicable to the folks you're talking to, but we have been thinking about ways to help customers reduce their energy costs. And primarily we've been focused on doing that for our low income and disadvantaged folks, and we have some programs for them. And I'm happy to direct to tell you how to access those kinds of programs. I think it depends on the rate you're on. Some folks still use domestic rates, which are flat. So, if you are on a time of use rate, then you are. But you have the option to use your appliances in a way that is the most beneficial to you, and using something like a demand response program to help determine when you maximize your appliances to get the lowest cost, and when to use them the least to minimize the highest rates.
Yeah, and I can add to that from a demand response perspective. I know things are evolving with heat pumps in terms of like the controls that are being added to them to be able to be controllable. So we're definitely watching that and seeing if there's opportunities to bring that into a demand response program or something similar.
I think so. Santa Monica customers can enroll in the CPA/CCA, right? Okay. I think that it could be helpful, per David's point, to do a cost comparison of if you were a CPA customer and you were running one of the heat pumps in the Santa Monica program, what the cost of that would be in comparison, since you're pricing out the electricity, in comparison to a traditional gas-fired furnace. And then it could be interesting maybe to explore the similar to the fleet, or not the fleet electrification, the vehicle electrification program that you have where you get credit for a charge or something like that, like a similar sort of bill rebate program for use of the heat pump instead of a gas-fired furnace. I also wonder if you're targeting mostly folks who don't have any heating or cooling, of which there are many in Santa Monica, because it's not something that was necessarily needed 20, 30 years ago, but it is certainly needed often now, rather than folks who already have heating and cooling, but you want them to use an electric version instead, or are you just broad swath targeting everybody?
We have a couple different kind of programs. So, for example, we have a low-income AC rebate program, and in some cases it will be people buying AC for the first time, and that would be a new cost, right? Because were not previously using AC. But this program would help them buy an ultra efficient AC unit to help them minimize those costs. I mean, I think ultimately these are decisions for individual homeowners, and they do those calculations based on their budgets. We have done analysis through the statewide REACH Code program for cost effectiveness for electrification, especially in new construction. And even though, sometimes the cost for equipment is higher up front, over time it tends to pay for itself because of the energy efficiency. That's new construction. I think your point was probably it would be great to have that for like an existing building if I'm trading something out, and I agree, that would be great. And if I find that information, I will definitely pass it on. Yeah, but so I think, I guess what I'm getting at here is like, we try to make the most energy efficient and least cost options available, and then help people make decisions for what is appropriate for them. And we're, at least with Energy Team, trying to provide as much of that information as possible. And we call it like unbiased, in the sense that we will provide options, but we're not going to tell you what appliance to go with, whether you should do it, or what contractor is the best for you,
I'm sorry, I missed the first part of her question, but you might have answered it. Is this for all of Santa Monica, or how? I'm trying to understand like what percentage of Santa Monica falls under CPA. This is probably something.
When Santa Monica opted in, the entire community was opted in as a CPA customer.
Okay.
Only those that decide that they want to change their provider and go back to Edison would not be eligible, but they can always opt back into our services.
So you have to opt out of the program.
It's an opt-out, yes.
Yeah, I really want to talk about this. This was one of the
I know I missed
single most effective decisions that we've made in order regarding reducing greenhouse gas emissions and moving forward the city's climate action goals. So when the city joined the Clean Power Alliance, council made the decision to opt 100% of residential and business customers into the Clean Power Alliance at 100% green power. And it's really an important transition in our work as a sustainable city, because as you all know, the responsibility is generally on the person doing the pro-climate, pro-sustainability thing to go out of their way to make positive change. And what this single action by council did was reduce our greenhouse gas emissions more than any other action that we've taken to date, and put the responsibility on the person who wants to opt out of the sustainable practice. So the responsibility is not on the person or the business who wants to do well or do good to do more. The responsibility is on the person who wants to do less to work for it. And so it's been a really effective strategy for us. So
Do the bills still come from Edison? I'm only asking because that's what I was trying to understand. Is I get an Edison bill, so
Yeah.
Yes, you'll get an Edison bill, and the generation, if you look at it closely, your generation charge will say from CPA, and it's not from Edison.
So that's awesome. I think the one thing I thought for when you started presenting was, I'm a renter in a building. There's no way that I could participate in a program like this. So I really hope you guys get through to the people who don't understand that that's a possibility and that these programs existed. So
the other thing I think is worth noting is that they provide there's both generation and distribution. Do you want to explain that for folks who?
Oh, so we provide the generation distribution. So the generation is, we go out and we essentially procure the electrons for you. So when you're thinking of solar, wind, those clean and renewable resources are what we're purchasing on your behalf. And that's when
I'm so sorry. Can you speak closer to the
yes.
mic? I'm sorry to say this. The reason I'm asking is because now we are recording these, and it's very helpful to the public when they go back to listen, not because I think you need to be heard more in the room.
Not a problem.
Thank you.
So we procure the electrons, which are essentially generated. And then Southern California Edison, so the wires and the way that the electrons get to your home, that's all their infrastructure. So we utilize the existing infrastructure to make sure that we are making the best investment possible in both public funds and private funds to deliver those clean electrons. And one thing I did also want to add to the 100% green is that CPA recognizes that some of our low-income customers are not able to put those dollars forward. And for the customers that are in our 100% green communities that are on Care Fair rates, they do receive that 100% green energy at our lean power cost, which is our lowest cost option. So we are making sure that everyone is coming along.
Okay, I have a couple of questions. The first one is just really out of curiosity. Do you have an assessment for what the proportion of the community has opted out of this? 4%? Oh, that's pretty good.
Yeah, 4% of accounts have opted out. We know that those accounts that have opted out use a disproportionately large amount of power. So yeah, it's not that 4% of that
Right.
power is less than 100% green, but
Got it.
yeah.
Okay, thank you. With regard to the EV Smart Charge, I have a question about the equipment. Because a lot of people have already purchased charging equipment, is there something that CPA will be supplying in order to be able to use the Smart Charge, or do you just have to luck out and have the right equipment in order to participate?
Yeah, that's a great question. Right now, we have a list of eligible vehicles, models, and years. So you're exactly right. If some models and vehicles are eligible, but the year might be not in that range that we're able to actually control the charging. So unfortunately, there's a couple things that have to align. The vehicle has to have that. It has to be enabled for us to be able to control the charging, and then the manufacturer also has to. There has to either be a partnership or an ability to use telematics to control the charging as well. So one of the alternatives is to use a home EV charger, but the list of those we cover most of the chargers and most of the vehicles, but there are some limitations to that.
Okay, I see. So it's either the car or the charging device
Yes.
can, okay, so that captures more people.
Yes.
One way or the other. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. And then my other question is really about the energy team. So there are lots of old single-family houses here, and the panels are incredibly small. So let's say an electrician comes over and is like, "Oh, you want to electrify your house? Well, what do you want to put in it? How big of a panel do you want?" I'm like, I mean, people don't know, right? So my question is, will the energy team have? I mean, I know I can call somebody and talk to them, and they can ultimately calculate how big of a panel. I just was sitting here thinking, wouldn't it be cool if I could just go online and say, I want this size of a water heater, and I want this, kind of a convection stove or whatever they're called, like induction. Can't remember what they're called. I really want one, but I can't get one because of this panel thing and having to tear out my walls and all that kind of stuff. So, but my question is, would there ever be a chance to just click on a bunch of things that I want and have it estimate the size of the panel that I want?
I see. So like a self-service tool
Yeah.
where you could say, this is my home. I think I need this kind of equipment. What kind of panel do I sort of reverse engineering your panel? That would be lovely. We've taken a more personal approach in the sense of you can call the energy team and we'll have someone who does that for you essentially. And so, the way that process would work is we would look at your existing panel, we would look at your existing appliances, and then based on what upgrades you would like to make, we would suggest to you, okay, you would probably need a 50-gallon water heater. To do that, you might need a panel going from 50 to 100 watts. A lot of panels we see in old houses are 20 and 50. They're very small, and now standards 200. So we have the ability to help you figure out what is the appropriate size panel based on your needs, but we don't have a self-service tool for panel size. Yeah.
So, because some people tend to kind of go, well, I don't know, what if I did this or what if I did that? And then I'd probably be wasting somebody's time on the phone for hours, flip-flopping all over the place trying to decide what's going on. But I appreciate that. Thank you so much. And before I turn it over to the public, I just want to pose this question to you. I know you said you weren't asking for any actions. You don't need anything from us this evening.
Not in terms of direct actions, but
Okay.
if there are recommendations, we are open to hearing that.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, just to clarify, they don't need you to adopt a motion, but they are providing this annual update for you to provide feedback or suggestions if necessary.
Have you all explored the opportunity to like have an alternative rate structure? You mentioned that you do have at least one alternative rate structure. So for customers that make the choice to go all electric as a way of like incentivizing it and offsetting some of the, I know that gas prices are volatile and they're obviously projected to go up, but right now it's more expensive to have all electric. So is that an option in any of your areas?
Yeah, so I believe it just launched, right? We just launched a rate called TOUD Prime, which has a super off-peak option, so that if you are all electric, you can take the most advantage of the lowest prices.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. That answers my question directly. Thank you very much. That's very cool. Oh, I'm totally blanking on my second question now. All right. I'm good. Thank you.
You can pop back in if you need to. If there's any member of the public that has a question, I ask that you please come up to the microphone. This microphone up there. And if you tap the black pad, it and the blue light should come on.
Okay, great, the blue light's on.
Right on.
Thank you for that. My question is, Southern California Edison, as several of you mentioned, charges for the delivery of electricity, and their rates also vary to some degree between time of day. So my question is, how is that correlated, if you will, with Southern California Edison? And just for the members that aren't that familiar with the industry, your bill is both CPA and Edison, and unfortunately, Edison makes up a pretty big chunk of the total bill.
Sure. So in terms of generation, that's all us. We develop all of the different rates, and as you've heard, we have the TOD Prime. We do not at all control the distribution and generation charge. So anything that you're seeing in regards to variation for that is directly related to the rate cases that the CPUC and Edison are deciding. So we don't have any say over that.
Okay. My second and final, it's more of a comment just for the city's benefit, that I appreciate all the questions about sizing the panels. That sometimes requires permitting. And maybe the city separately and outside of this meeting can sort of think through the permitting issue. I'm a member of the City of Santa Monica's audit subcommittee, and we're trying to do some work on the permitting system to sort of help it. So just food for thought. Thank you.
I remembered my second question, which is you briefly touched on that you're working with the city on an existing building reach code. I assume, because I know the city's also working on building performance standards for larger buildings that will be performance-based, I assume the reach code is going to be prescriptive for existing buildings, right? And if it is, if you could preview some of the like big headliners for that, I'm curious.
Before I jump in, yeah, Ariana, if you wanted to mention, I can then reiterate into the mic if you.
So for the existing building reach code, and maybe, I don't know if everyone knows what a reach code is, but just for some level setting, basically they go beyond the state mandatory requirements. So like our energy performance approach for new construction went above the state energy code requirements. But then for the existing building reach code, which is going to impact smaller existing buildings, that will be triggered by so when someone goes to apply for a permit, the threshold would be project valuation or type of project. And so there will be a menu of options to comply. So it won't be just one prescriptive requirement. It can be, anything from adding insulation or adding other efficient appliances. So we're basing it pretty closely off of SLO's, if you've seen theirs. There's a couple other cities that have adopted similar ones. West Hollywood also is in the process of adopting a similar version. So yeah, I can send you more info if you'd like.
So to clarify, it's at point of permitting for like a major renovation?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
Got it.
Yeah, and then the building performance standards will be starting at larger buildings, so 50,000 square feet, and then dropping down. And you're more familiar with that, so yeah.
Thank you, CPA friends. Alexandra asked the question about the accounts and how many were enrolled, and there was the response that we know that of the 4% that opted out of the Clean Power Alliance, they include our largest electricity users in Santa Monica. And some time ago, we had heard that perhaps the Clean Power Alliance was considering adopting some kind of direct access program, multi-year contract or something like that, that would encourage the largest energy users to make enough of a commitment that would allow the CPA to price its product in a way that incentivized them to get into the Clean Power Alliance at 100%. Clean renewable energy. We haven't heard anything about that. A lot has happened in the last few years. So I'm wondering if you've heard anything about that. We would like to get, in order for us to achieve our clean renewable energy goals, we need to have the largest electricity users on board.
So I haven't heard anything about that in my time at CPA, but I'm happy to look back and get the commission look into it and get LES and some of the commission
Thank you.
Responses.
I guess my other question has to do with the carbon emissions potential of some of the programs that you have that we're moving forward with. When people use those renter-controlled units, or even when we use our heat pump at home, the time of day that we use it, in terms of an emissions impact, if we're using it, in the dark, it's still a problem. And so I wonder if you have modeled or predicted what you think the emissions results will be of the programs that we're collaborating on, the renters units, as well as the EV charging for residential folks. I want to throw out something related to that residential charging issue as well. There's a lot of people who have charging at home, and they can charge at home, but they drive to work, and often they want to charge at work. But the charging stations where they charge at work require them at some point during the day to leave their job, go to their parking space, and move their car so that someone else can get into that charging location. So people are going to come home and charge at night. I suppose they can try to charge on the weekend or something during the day. But I don't know how you can manage that, if there is a way. Yeah, but yes, thanks.
Yeah, it's a great question. So the program currently is only active managed charging that we are controlling, so that's why it has to be at home. But we do have, as part of our agreement with EV Energy, they are our vendor for this program. Part of it is to develop some research for us on passive managed charging, which would be developing programs to incentivize customers for charging during times of day themselves. So for plugging in, whether it's at work or at a public charger, and being incentivized to charge at certain times of day. So we are looking forward to seeing what might come of that.
Okay. That would be a great addition to whatever you're doing. Last are sort of general questions about the Clean Power Alliance. I haven't heard anything about how the fires or the federal government what can we expect from the Clean Power Alliance in the coming year as a result of those things?
Sure. So with regards to the fires, we're being really cognizant. A number of our customers were impacted, and we are taking our time as we're thinking through the programs to really support fire resiliency and making sure that we're responding to the needs of those who were heavily impacted and lost homes. So there will be more forthcoming, but we really want to take the lessons learned from previous disasters to be really genuine and cognizant in the response, not just knee-jerk reactions of what can we do to immediately insert ourselves. With regards to the federal government, we are all living in the implications of our recent election, and I will say that we are working closely with our trade association at the federal level to address some of our questions around things like the investment tax credit, the clean energy tax credits, as well as some of the public financing options that we utilize to ensure that we're delivering savings to our customers. Those are ongoing questions, and we are going to be participating in some events in DC up in April. So we are very cognizant of the federal landscape and are working on the best that we can with our elected officials.
When you said savings to your customer, are the residents the end user the customer, or is the city of Santa Monica your customer?
So it's all of that. So it's we serve city of Santa Monica, we serve the residents of Santa Monica and the small businesses as well.
And then do you see a price, there's a price improvement since CPA has been implemented as kind of the purchaser through, I know, because I know what my electric bills are, and I was just thinking when that gentleman asked the question about how much Edison is taking, so is it kind of like is there still a benefit or cost savings to the end user, or is it kind of comparable when you kind of look at the actual service fees, but so much more is happening to give back to Santa Monica, so that's like kind of the added benefit? I wasn't sure.
So there are a couple of different things. One of the ways that we are able to realize cost savings for our customers is through our what was Kay just said? The clean energy. We work with essentially we are allowed certain financing that's allowing us to execute a number of different procurement energy purchases that drops because of our well-rated, our high rating, credit rating. We're able to drop essentially the price for our energy contracts, and we're able to then directly pass those on to our customers in the terms of our rates over time. And so that is one of the questions. The other one was about
if the end user has a cost savings overall when we're actually looking like, okay, Edison is charging this much in this, and so if there was still a savings to the end user, or if really how we all collectively gain a savings is by giving back to our city and our community. So I was trying to differentiate between it.
So our rates are set every June by our board, and we make a very specific choices to ensure that we have competitive rates. And Southern California Edison's rates do change pretty often based off of the way that they go through the CPUC. So there may be times when our rates are not as competitive as Edison's, and there may be times when our rates are much more competitive than Edison's. But our customer won't see any change in their actual rate that they are paying. So whether or not Southern California Edison's rates go up or down, our customer won't see that or feel that impact because they are going to be paying the same rate that they had been. Does that answer the question? Oh, and Chico, if you have
one thing, I'll add to that. Thank you. This is a good question. It's hard to answer because it's complicated. So natural gas is a big part of electricity, and natural gas is also very volatile, as we've seen in the last year or two. So last year, because of that price volatility from like the war in Ukraine, Edison's rate fluctuated wildly while ours did not. On average, our 100% green rate is about 6% more expensive than roughly 40% renewable energy in like the standard RPS background. So to jump from 40% renewable power to 100% renewable power, you have a 6% margin. And then it varies year to year based on the different inputs there. But the one thing you don't get with Edison is a choice. So, you know, if you're with Edison, you're just defaulted to Edison, you don't even really have a way to get 100% renewable power. They have a program. We have staff that have been on waiting list for 2 years to get onto that program. So with CPA, you know, you're defaulted to 100% renewable power, but you can always call and change. With Edison, you don't have a choice to ever get that 100% renewable power if you want it. Well, I won't say ever, for 2 years.
Okay, I think we are, if you could go to the microphone, please.
I'm just curious why your super off-peak and your off-peak rates are exactly the same. I'm looking at my bill. What's the point?
We're trying to look up that answer right now. So the super off-peak rate just launched. So we do know that it's supposed to be a lower rate between the hours of 8 to 4 to shift energy usage to the daytime. But we can definitely get back to you and look into that of why why it might be looking differently on your bill. I think that's.
Okay. I assume it's because there's so much solar that nowadays that's why you would like to shift more of the demand to the daylight hours.
Yes, absolutely. I think we're trying to shift energy during the day because there is an abundance of renewables on the grid during that time.
Unless you give me an incentive, I'm going to keep plugging my car in at night.
Okay.
That's what I thought. And I did this math, plug it in, it's ridiculously cheap. It's like 11%, 11 cents. It's like you're getting
Are you on the EV rate?
Yeah, I think so.
We're gonna have our own mini surge in Santa Monica based on that piece of information. Thanks.
Brown.
No, it's like 9 a.m.
Well, the CPA rate is 9 cents approximately of kWh. I don't know what the SCE.
It's ridiculously low.
Yeah, but
The average in
of course you
California
got
is
to
like
add
35.
SCE's piece to the puzzle.
That's like giving it away.
Okay, I love this conversation, but I think we should move on so that we're not here until midnight. Unless there's anybody else who has a comment or a question, that would be great. Okay.
I think you started to mention this, but for the EV Smart Charge, will that ever be extended to commercial customers or just residential?
Right now, it's just residential. Being able to target homes in our territory, but we have looked into commercial, and so it's one of the options we're still considering. We're just starting here, and definitely appreciate the feedback or any thoughts on that when it comes to fleets and any sort of commercial ideas.
Well, we have a lot of EV fleet vehicles. We would be happy to enroll if it does.
Okay, thank you. Thanks very much for that presentation and for fielding all of our questions. Appreciate it. We look forward to hearing from you next time. And
Thank you for having us.
yeah. Okay, let's move on to the annual water supply and demand assessment. Okay. We'd love to get started. Thank you so much. Take it away.
Is the mic on?
Oh, sorry, everyone, if you could just quiet down so we could have this presentation. Thank you.
Okay. Can everybody hear me all right? Okay, perfect. Yeah, it says blue, so it's good. Okay, perfect. All right. Good evening, everybody. I promise to keep this short because I know we have another longer presentation after this. But my name is Dinaz Qureshi. I am the Civil Engineering Assistant in the Water Resources Division. And this evening, I will be presenting on the 2025 Annual Water Supply and Demand Assessment. So just a quick overview of what I'm going to be talking about. So we're going to start off with a timeline of the assessment, followed by our demand and supply, the assessment results, and then ending it with our next steps. Sorry, that's supposed to say 2025. But just a little bit of background on this 2025 Annual Water Supply and Demand Assessment. So this is actually required by the California Water Code as of 2022. So we have been completing this report every year since we've been required to do it. This actually helps the city identify potential water shortages and plan better for it. We are required to assess a dry, hot conditions in the city as our projected year. And our projected year for our next report is from July 1st of 2025 through June 30th of 2026. This slide just gives a brief overview of the timeline. So right now we're in March, which is presenting these findings to the commission. Then in the next months, we'll be taking our findings to council. And then finally, on or before July 1st, we have to submit our final assessment to the state of California's Department of Water Resources. Now I'm going to be touching on unconstrained versus constrained demand. So these are two terms that you'll be hearing a lot throughout this presentation, and they're also in the report. So unconstrained demand is our water demand without any water conservation. And then our constrained demand is our potable water demand with conservation reduction included, which is a 20% reduction in usage. And this is something that the city has done since 2014. Now, moving on to our data inputs. So looking at the data here, we have the past 5 years of usage throughout the city. On the right-hand side, you can see our projected year constrained demand is 10,101 acre-feet. And then our projected year unconstrained demand is 12,626 acre-feet. And we got this projected year demand by taking an average of the past 5 years usage data. Now looking at our projected supply, so we have 7,406 acre-feet from our Metropolitan Water District Tier 1 allocation. And then we have 6,755 acre-feet from our local supplies. And this number comes from our 2020 Urban Water Management Plan, and this is our drought risk assessment. So this is looking at one hot, dry year, basically the worst drought conditions that are possible in the city. So adding these two together, we have 14,161 acre-feet as our projected supply for the upcoming year. Now, these are our assessment results without conservation, so not including that 20% in reduction in usage. So if you look here with our unconstrained demand and our water supply, we have a 2,525 acre-foot surplus. This is a 12% surplus, and this puts us in level 0, which is no shortage, which is great. However, we are recommending to stay in a stage 2 water shortage stage. Again, this is something that we have done since 2014, so we are not asking of anything new of our citizens and or of our residents of the city. We are just asking them to kind of do what they've been doing since 2014 and keep that 20% reduction in place. Additionally, the California Senate Bill SBX 7-7 and the Executive Order B 3716 require meeting conservation targets, which staying in this level will help us do. Conservation will also help with the city's broader water goals. And then lastly, without having stage 2, we would actually see an increased demand, which would lead to us importing more water from the Metropolitan Water District, which we'd have to pay extra for, which would result in higher rates. So continuing the conversation about conservation and historical drought. So as we all know, we've had a lot of rain in California in 2023, 2024, and thus far in 2025. However, this rain has only partially relieved the drought. The Colorado River is one of our imported water supplies, so we get it from the State Water Project and the Colorado River. So the Colorado River levels are not recovering, and some officials say that they might never recover in our lifetimes. So conservation really ensures that we stay ahead of the curve. And here in this slide at the bottom, I've included a graph that shows the drought levels in the state of California from 2020 to present day, with the darker red color indicating a more severe drought. And then also on the right-hand side, I have a quote here from the DWR director who's saying that we need to prepare for any scenario, and this early in the season, we need to take a conservative approach to managing our water supply. So as you can see, the state is also taking a conservative approach. So by staying in the stage 2 shortage, the city is aligning with the state's broader goals. So now going back to our assessment results, with that 20% conservation, we were able to take our demand from 12,626 acre feet down to the 10,101 acre feet. So our revised surplus now is 4,060 acre feet, and we are now in a 32% surplus. So tonight, the requested action from the commission, so staff recommends the commission motion to support a resolution to adopt the 2025 annual water supply and demand assessment. So our next steps are going to be finalizing this assessment. Like I said earlier, we are going to present our findings to City Council. And then finally, we will be submitting our report to DWR by July 1st. Thank you very much.
Any commissioners with questions?
Hi, thanks for the presentation. Just a small complaint, if I may. It would be helpful, for me at least, to see this information and data before the meeting. It wasn't in the agenda pack, at least not the one that I got. So with something as complicated as this, I think it's good to give us a heads up if you're going to ask for something.
I did send it, maybe there was some miscommunication, I didn't send it early enough, but I did email out my report last week, so I don't know, maybe it just got lost in communication, so I apologize.
Can you go back to the slide that has the projections and
that one? Oh, this one?
Yeah,
Okay,
that
yeah.
one. That one's great. So I guess my question to the commission is, do we have enough information and enough time to think about this in order to support?
I'd like to read it.
Would you like to
Yes,
read it?
I would
Okay.
definitely like to read it.
All right.
And my second question, or my first question is, do we have the breakout of like what's drinking water versus other kinds of water that is used in our city?
Yeah, so that breakdown is all given in the report.
Amazing. Thank you.
Yeah.
Perfect.
But this supply and demand that we're looking at right now, this is just for drinking water. Yeah.
I actually have one more question. Okay. I know that I'm really proud of our city's water infrastructure. So when I'm asking any questions, I hope you know that's where it's coming from. But is there going to be a point where, like when SWIP comes online for drinking water, where that will directly impact these numbers and our, like, I guess, reliance on? Why are you guys looking at each other?
I was going to defer that to
Oh,
Sunny,
okay.
who's the manager.
Okay.
So good evening, I'm Sunny Wang, I'm the city's water utilities manager. So regarding SWIP, in future projects, we're really looking at augmenting existing supply, not necessarily adding more, right? So there was some confusion when we were doing our sustainable water infrastructure project and looking at local water self-sufficiency. It's not about adding more supplies, replacing the imported water that we rely on. So it's really helping us augment local supply to be more sustainable, so we draw less from our groundwater supply, not necessarily to increase the number of what we have.
Is SWIP cheaper on a per unit basis than net tier 1? I suspect not.
Well, it depends on how you look at it, right? Because there's a domino effect if it isn't. So if you look at just the pure production of that purified water versus met tier 1, no, it's not. However, If you don't use that to recharge your local groundwater, then you don't have our groundwater to pump anymore. And that historically has been 30% cheaper than MET's Tier 1, right? So even if you look at MET is trying to invest in a program like SWIP at a regional scale at Carson, right? Something that we need to do to prevent, investment in the long run, right? 20, 30 years from now.
Thank you, Sunny.
Commissioners, I just wanted to let you know that Dinaz did send me the report, and I didn't realize that it was different than the PowerPoint, and so I apologize. It's my fault that you didn't receive that. I'll send it to you tonight.
Thank you. Judy?
Sunny, do you have any knowledge about what our president is going to do with the Colorado River?
No, I mean, if I could predict stuff like that, I would not be working here. I'd be in the stock market.
Sense is that the commission is a little reluctant to take action tonight. So, Shannon, you want to?
I wanted to ask staff if this is timely. I seem to remember that
Probably go back to your scope.
there may be a.
So right now, we are actually scheduled for the May City Council meeting, I think the first one in May.
So we have another month to.
We're just going to make it.
Okay.
Correct.
Yeah, if we can make quorum, yeah. Ooh.
I think we will,
Okay.
according to what people have told me so far.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you.
I'm sending this to you right now.
Thank you, Claire. Okay. Any other questions from the public? All right. We'll look forward to the report. Thank you.
Thank you.
And moving on to the water wastewater 5-year rate study. Take it away, Sunny.
Here you go. Sorry. Good evening. I'm Sunny Wang. I'm the city's water utilities manager. I'm here to present the 5-year wastewater rate study. We do this every 5 years, so I think I only recognize one of you from the last time I did this. So, feel free to ask me questions at the end. This is scheduled for a city council study session next Tuesday. Just to give you an overview of what we're going to be covering tonight, just a general overview of our water wastewater services, our investment in having a sustainable climate resilient community, go into details of the water wastewater rate study, and get any input from the commission tonight. To start, we're providing a general overview of our water and wastewater supply. We serve about 93,000 residents and over 2,700 customers in our city. However, on any given day, if you have in the summer or when we have high tourism, our residential population could grow to over 500,000 in one day that we serve. So even though our resident population may make it seem like we're a small city, but we serve quite a big population when all our hotels are full, when people come to visit our city. We provide drinking water and fire protection services. The sources of that water is primarily groundwater, and we import surface water from the State Water Project or the Colorado River to meet our drinking water demands in the city. We also collect and dispose of wastewater in our city. Majority of our wastewater is conveyed to the Hyperion Treatment Plant located by LAX in El Segundo, that's owned and operated by the city of Los Angeles. And we also have recyclable water production in our city with the Sustainable Water Infrastructure Project, as well as our Santa Monica Urban Runoff Recycling Facility. So on average, we produce about 9 to 10 million gallons per day to meet our community's needs. We collect and dispose of 14 million gallons, and this is probably where you're like, how do we generate more wastewater? than drinking water that we use, right? Part of the wastewater from Malibu Palisades flows through our city system ultimately to Hyperion. So that's why that wastewater number we manage is higher than the drinking water that we produce. We have the capability to produce up to 1.5 million gallons of recycled water per day. We also own and operate 4 large water storage reservoirs. The last 2 facts actually came pretty important during the recent wildfire emergency we had in the region. With the SWIP capability, we actually turned up our water supply to 110%. Right, we had our potable water system ready to fight fires. We turned up SWIP to 100% to fill water trucks as needed, so they could fill water trucks without taxing our potable water system that feeds the hydrants. The water storage reservoir is equally important. It provides over 24 hours of firefighting capabilities in our city with those 4 large reservoirs. So they provide on average about 4 days of storage. But during a peak day, when it's busy in the summer, we could draw all 4 reservoirs empty. Right, that just helps us meet our peak day demands as well as emergency requirements. Before I get into this rate study, I wanted to go back and visit the prior 5-year rate study, as it's pretty important to understand what we were trying to achieve in the previous 5 years, some of the impacts that impacted our water and wastewater enterprise fund, before we dive into details for this 5 years. Before I begin, I just want to remind everyone our fund is self-sustaining, meaning what we operate on is only on ratepayer funds. We have no connection to the city's general fund. We don't use any tax revenue for these services. So everything that we provide, water and wastewater, is through the utility bill and those rates that we collect. So the goal of the prior rate study, this is 2020 to 2024, was investing in our water and wastewater infrastructure, to maintain a modern infrastructure by replacing aging infrastructure, maintain high quality and reliable services, investing in water self-sufficiency, and providing cost of service analysis. So the big item for the previous 5 years was investing in water self-sufficiency that I'll cover in a little bit. But once we adopted those rates in January 2020, we all remember what happened March 2020, COVID hit. And it triggered a lot of different impacts along with climate instability. First is the COVID-19 pandemic. We saw significant declines of revenues from the commercial sector at first, when a lot of businesses were closed and shut down. We also saw a significant decline in multifamily residential as well. When the rent protection were lifted, we saw a lot of people move out of the city instead of pay back their rent. So we noticed a good amount of decline in water use from those 2 sectors. We also transferred unrestricted settlement funds back to the general fund to help with the budget gap at that time that was experienced in our general fund, and this is unrestricted. So these aren't ratepayer funds, these are money the city received in the settlement for cleanup of pollution. That impacted some of our financing mechanism for our water self-sufficiency projects. That's why that's highlighted there. Climate instability. If you saw Dinos' slide in previous presentation, we're faced with severe droughts. That's then followed by extreme wet winters. So this constant change going back and forth has put both pressure on the supply side of our drinking water as well as the demand side. When it rains a lot, people just tend to use less water. Right? Market volatility, this is probably one of the biggest impact in our industry. If you look at general inflation, pre-pandemic, 2 to 3%, pretty predictable year over year. Post-pandemic, it's anywhere from 4 to 9%, and it's all over the place. If you look at the water industry specific, pre-pandemic, we were about 4 to 5%, pretty predictable as well. Post-pandemic is anywhere from 5 to 16%, is actually climbing up, and I have a figure of that in the next slide to share with you all. Lastly, decreasing revenues result in our inability to cover some fixed costs unless we make some adjustments. This slide just kind of summarizes the market volatility pre and post-pandemic. That's that dashed line that's drawn down the middle of that graph there. I want to draw your attention to the green line that's labeled HWI. That's the Handy Whitman Index. It's what the water industry uses to track escalation. As I mentioned, pre-pandemic, pretty predictable, 4 to 5%, pretty consistent. Post-pandemic, you see that just skyrocketing. Why? Some businesses and manufacturers learned that during COVID, when they shut down their factories, that they don't need to reopen them and they can make more money by putting more supply squeeze on the market. Well, we also saw raw materials. Those markets, they went out of business. They didn't come back. So makers of some of the chemicals like chlorine right, is a strained supply now. We have to compete with a lot of other water agencies across the United States for that chemical. One of the chemicals that we paid pre-pandemic, over 5 years, we paid about $500,000. Right now, we're paying $500,000 for just 1 year worth of supply. So that's just a contrast of pre and post-pandemic. Raw materials have just become more and more scarce. And as I mentioned earlier too, declining revenue impact our operations, right? About 70% of our operational costs are fixed, meaning if you use 1 gallon, 100 gallon, 1,000 gallons, we still have to expend 70% of our costs to make sure that the water is there when you want to use it, whether it's 1 in the morning, 8 in the morning, or you want to make lunch. Right? So a lot of our cost is fixed, but our rate structure is the opposite. Right now, our rate structure is 15% fixed and 85% volumetric. So to cover our fixed costs, it takes quite a bit of balancing. So when we have these market volatilities, prices going up, demand changing because of climate instability, it creates a lot of problems for our operations because of how our rate structure is set up versus our actual expenditures. So looking at the water fund revenue, the forecast from the last 5-year rate study to the actuals. The forecast is shown in the orange dashed line, and the blue line, I think it's blue on there, is the actual. So over the net 5 years, the total revenue shortfall, we were short about $27 million, right? We made up for that gap through a combination of grants, water revenue bond, which we got a very favorable interest rate. I think it was 1.5, 1.8%. You can't get loans like that these days anymore. It's almost like free money when we issue that water revenue bond. And then those went to pay for the water self-sufficiency projects that we promised the community. We also deferred about $15 million, about half of our budget for water main replacements that we intend to catch up in the future. That was to help balance the budget, to maintain operation and still deliver on key projects that was promised to the community. On the wastewater fund, similar story, right? Net revenue shortfall over the 5 years, about $16 million or so. However, you do notice that 1 year we actually met our revenue target, and that's because of the low interest loan that we received from the state. We had a $4 million principal forgiveness, so that $4 million came back to us. That's why that 1 year we hit target. Other than that, we were also short in meeting our revenue requirements. Similar story as the water fund. Staff was able to get quite a bit of grants, about $15 million on this side, and a $55 million low interest loan from the state to pay for water self-sufficiency projects. So in total, to pay for the various water self-sufficiency projects from the last rate cycle, we received over $25 million in grants, issued a $78 million revenue bond, and also obtained a $55 million low interest loan from the state. So despite all these revenue challenges, we were still able to deliver on several major water self-sufficiency projects, right? The original goal was 99% water self-sufficiency. With the financing challenges, what we're able to deliver, we have the capability to deliver about 85% of our water supply locally by the end of this year. The award-winning Sustainable Water Infrastructure Project was brought online in 2022. We're near completion of the expansion of our water treatment plant, our Arcata Water Treatment Plant, the Olympic Well for restoration. Both of those projects is currently undergoing final testing right now. That's scheduled to end around May. And on the advanced meter infrastructure, we just completed this last month. So these are several innovative, first-of-its-kind projects that we have delivered with the funding that we're able to secure from grants, loans, and the revenue bonds. So let's look at this current 5-year rate study. Similar goals. I highlighted the key differences. Instead of investing in water self-sufficiency, it's really about reliability and resiliency of our aging infrastructure. And the conversation is really around our water storage reservoir that I'll dive into detail a little more. But first, there's always the question, why do you need to raise rates, right? Why can't we just keep them the same? And this figure is just really illustrate what happens if we don't adjust rates to account for, at a minimum, inflation, right? So the black line is our revenue if it stayed flat. The blue bar is our operating expenditures. The yellow is our debt service to repay the water revenue bond. And the green bar is the capital projects, the routine capital projects like our water main replacement projects, replacing our aging groundwater production wells. So without any adjustments to our revenue, and assume that it stays flat, because there's actually a chance it could go down because we're using less and less water, which is great, right? However, you can see that by 2028, we could barely cover our operating expenditures and our debt service obligations. In 2029, we wouldn't be able to recover enough revenue to cover our debt service obligations, right? And we're not able to keep up with our capital replacement projects as well. That would actually result in higher expenditures. So the blue bars you see here will actually go up because it would result in longer downtime of our infrastructure, lower water production from our local groundwater production wells, right? That would increase our operation costs as we need to buy more imported water in that case. So we'll start with the wastewater fund. This one is relatively straightforward. The proposed 5-year rate increase is 7.7766%. This is primarily to keep up with inflation and escalation in the market and to maintain healthy reserves, right? Our routine CIP projects on this is fairly minimal. I would say is primarily wastewater main replacement. That's the key thing for the budget. The other two big capital projects we have on the wastewater fund is the rehabilitation of Moss Avenue Pump Station and also the Santa Monica Urban Runoff Recycling Facility. However, as you note here, the Moss Avenue Pump Station is 100% reimbursed by LA. So the city fronts the money. We get repaid by LA for any upgrades there. For SMRF, it's a 50-50 cost share between Santa Monica and City of LA. So even the two big projects that we have on the wastewater side, it isn't a big burden on our ratepayers. Now we dive into the more complicated one for the water fund, right? And as I mentioned, the conversation is really around our reservoirs. And here's just an overview of our water distribution system that shows where our reservoir is located. If you can see kind of the northeast corner where those 4 blue dots, cylinders are located, right? So in total, as I mentioned, we have about 40 million gallons of storage capacity, right? It's to make sure we have enough supply from peak day demands as well as emergency storage. However, they supply enough pressure throughout the whole system. When the water reaches the reservoir in the northeast corner of the city, from that point on, it goes to the entire city by gravity. So we're able to provide pressure to the southwest corner of the city, all by gravity from those reservoirs. So it's not only a storage capacity we have there, but also maintains sufficient pressure across the whole city from there. They are aging infrastructure, right? They're anywhere from 60 to 70-year-old to over 100. The reservoir at Arcadia turned 100 last year. It is now 101. It's a very important part of our history. It's because we have this water supply that Santa Monica is our own city today, and why we didn't get swallowed up and annexed into City of LA, because our city council back in 1916 had the foresight to purchase the 4 private water companies to form our municipal water system today. So important to remember that we need to continue to invest in our water infrastructure as we look towards the future. And these concrete reservoirs, you know, the typical life is anywhere from, I would say, 50 to 100 years old. And it really depends on how many earthquakes it's seen. And some of it has seen quite a few earthquakes over its time. This is just an image of the 4 reservoirs and the location. We'll start with the top left. This is at our Arcata Water Treatment Plant. It's located at Bundy and Wilshire, 5 million gallons of storage capacity. This is a partially buried reservoir, and this is the one that's now at 101 years old. The second one on the bottom left, that's the San Vicente Reservoir, located at 26 and 7 Vicente, beneath the median of that boulevard there. Also 5 million gallon storage capacity. The next one, top right, is the Mount Olivet Reservoir, is located at the highest point in the city on Franklin Street. A lot of people wonder why there's just an open area of grass there. It's because our reservoir is underneath there. Also 5 million gallons of capacity. If you haven't noticed by now, we have a theme of we love burying things underground here at the city. We got SWIP that's underground, but it really started with these reservoirs that's all underground. The last one is at the bottom right, is the Riviera Reservoir that's located at the Riviera Country Club beneath the tennis courts. And this is our largest, 25 million gallons. This is actually considered a dam. It's regulated by the U.S. Army Corps for that reservoir there. So why are these reservoirs important? I touched upon a few things on the distribution system already. This is also a key component of our safety element goals that was presented to City Council in January, right? Having seismically resilient infrastructure, having resilient water storage, having the ability to meet peak load water supply demands, and having emergency water supply. So our reservoirs are critical to ensure these safety element goals are met. And just to give you an idea of some of the rehabilitation at these reservoirs, pretty much all 4 of them need some form of these key bullets here: seismic structural upgrades, electrical system upgrades, hydraulic water quality improvements, and security and reliability improvements. The photo on the top right is one of the reservoirs where showing the different aspects of works that we need. We need additional concrete to thicken the floors, thicken the walls. This actually has a wood roof that needs to be replaced with a concrete roof. The support columns and beams all need to be reinforced. The bottom left, that's our Riviera Reservoir. The photo just shows you how many columns there are spanning the entire reservoir. We actually have a boat in there when we need to do inspection to get around in that reservoir. All right. Similar here, we need to thicken the floors, the walls, the supporting columns, and the roof, most importantly, of these reservoirs. Right? So the 2 key options we're looking at for the water rate is, we want to continue the fund routine operation to produce water to provide drinking water service to the community. The first one, we want to rehabilitate the reservoirs and replace our water operations center. And it refunds all of our routine capital projects. The second option just looks at funding our routine operations, further deferring the rehabilitation of reservoirs in our water operations center and water quality lab, and also reducing our routine capital projects by 25%. All right. So water rate option 1, as I mentioned, is funding 100% of our routine CIP projects, keep pace with inflation for our day-to-day operations, rehabilitate our reservoirs, and replace our water operations center / water quality lab for reasons I've touched upon earlier. However, it's a heavy lift. We understand the proposed rate increase is big, right? 20%, 16, 9, 9, 6. There's a reason why the first 2 years are high, is to come up with enough matching funds for our financing option to rehabilitate the reservoirs. And the last 3 years, you can see the 996, that's really just keeping up with escalation. So I'm going to jump into why, before you guys get over the shock of my first 2 percentages, why that's a heavy lift on our budget for the first 2 years in water, why the 20 and the 16%. In total, the 4 reservoirs, our water operations center, to replace that is about a $130 million program. The way that the Prop 218 structure is set up for cost of recovery, it's almost impossible for a utility to save up that kind of money. If you look at our tier 1 charge, it's less than a penny a gallon. So imagine how much water needs to be used to come up with $130 million, right, on top of our day-to-day operations. So our funding strategy is looking at a combination of federal loans, state and federal grants, but we need to come up with a cash contribution of about 20 to 25% of the total program cost, or $33 million. So right now we have already begun several discussions with US EPA on the WIFIA loan. They will fund up to 49% of the program. This is a low interest loan from the federal government. We actually spoke with them previously for our water self-sufficiency projects. It was at the 11th hour that we pivoted to a water revenue bond at the time and decided to go to WIFIA later if we needed. Unfortunately, now is the time we kind of need that assistance from the federal government. We're also looking at a combination of state and federal grants. We've already begun discussions. We actually have a grant application in the works already with the state for the Riviera Reservoir. That's about $33 million that we could potentially tap there for federal state grants. As I mentioned, we still need to come up with 20-25% of that ourselves, right? And this is to complete the reservoirs over a 10-year period. As you can imagine, we can only take one reservoir offline at any given time. It takes anywhere from 1 to 2 years. So when you heard about the news, the San Ynez Reservoir covers taking a year to repair, unfortunately, that is how long it takes to repair these reservoirs that's been around for a while. We understand there's a lot of uncertainty with the federal government, right? This option also gives us the flexibility to raise enough cash for whatever changes on the federal side, that we have enough cash on hand, the $33 million, to rehabilitate at least one reservoir in this rate cycle. That one reservoir being the Riviera, because that's our largest, give us the biggest bang for the buck. And by rehabilitating that, it extends our operations well into 2035, 2040 to be able to meet our minimum requirements on storage, right? And we have sufficient revenue to replace one reservoir every 5-year cycle. So over This option, if we're not successful in getting outside support, we would be able to do all 4 reservoirs in about 20 years. However, we still need to find funding for replacement of our water operations center and water quality lab. Our water operations center is really the brain of the operation. That's where everything's being monitored and controlled. So if there was a failure there, we could essentially lose our local water supply altogether. Last piece for our rate structure, we're also proposing increase the rate structure itself. As I mentioned, currently we have a 15% fixed fee. We're proposing to increase that to 20%. This was also discussed with City Council 5 years ago, understanding that the 15% was a small step that we need to take to stabilize our revenue stream. This is a smaller step, but a step that we feel is necessary to take. As I mentioned, 70% of our cost is fixed. Currently, only 15% of our revenue is fixed to ensure that we recover that. We're proposing to increase that to 20%. That really doesn't have a impact to the typical single-family, multifamily, or commercial customers, right? Because you can see when the first row that's highlighted there, when the fixed charge goes up, the volumetric rate actually goes down because we're recovering some of that revenue already through that fixed charge. So you can see here in the comparison, when we increase the fixed charge to 20%, that tier 1 rate goes down from $7.35 per 100 cubic feet to $6.78 per 100 cubic feet. And 100 cubic feet is about 748 gallons. This is a typical bill for a single family that uses 2,200 cubic feet every 2 months, or roughly 16,500 gallons, right? So as I mentioned, majority of the customers will not see a difference. The ones that will are the really low water users. For single family homes, this would be users that's using less than 8 HCF every 2 months. In that, they'll see a notable difference, about $10 or so on their bill. So just comparing water commodity prices, I'm sure you guys have seen something similar. But the tap water, the drinking water that we provide is multiple uses, right? You could drink it, you irrigate, you shower, fire protection, all of that. It's one system. Right now, the tier 1 rate is $0.008 per gallon. With our proposed 20% rate increase for that first year, it increases to $0.009 per gallon, right? Still relatively very affordable compared to other sources, right? You have these machines you see at supermarkets, 40, 50 cents a gallon to fill your 5-gallon jug. Or if you go buy bottled water, that could be anywhere from $1 to $10 a gallon. Right? Water rate option 2. As I mentioned, we're reducing our routine CIP funding by 75%. And we're deferring all reservoir rehab work in the Water Operations Center, right? One thing I want to point out here is the dangers associated with that, right? The increased failure of our reservoir due to age or seismic events, our inability to meet water demands in emergencies like wildfires, or to be able to meet peak day demands for our local economy. Depending on which of the 4 fails, we actually may lose our entire local water supply. As majority of our local water supply has to flow through the Arcadia Reservoir, as well as the Riviera Reservoir before it gets to the rest of the city, right? And lastly, we also risk potential non-compliance with our regulatory requirements that could result in fines, or ultimately losing our water system for the state to take over control if we don't maintain our infrastructure in good condition. So the second option, the proposed 5-year rate increase, is 11,975. Yes, the first 2 years are still a little higher. That's to help replenish reserves. That goes back to the first couple of slides I showed about our actual revenues. This fiscal year, we're actually dipping into our reserve about $4 to $5 million to cover some of the deficits that we're seeing in our Water Enterprise Fund. We're just out of grants and funding opportunities at this point. So how does the 2 options compare? This is really getting the meat to it. I'm almost done. It's just like 5 more slides, but I know it's a lot to absorb. The first column is our current typical bill for a single family. That's a single family that uses 22 HCF. For a typical multifamily here is a 8-unit apartment complex, and a typical commercial. The typical commercial in our city, the average usage is a fast service restaurant like a Sweet Greens or Tokaya, that type of business. Water rate option 1, we have a financial plan in place to rehabilitate our reservoirs to maintain reliable, resilient water storage and distribution. Water rate option 2, we would defer all of that and live with that risk. But the difference between option 1 and 2 is that for a single family, it's about $6.25 a month that you save over the 5-year duration, right? That adds up to probably about 390, or yeah, about maybe a little more than that or so. For multifamily, it's about close to about $2 a unit a month. Commercial is about $24 a month. Yes, the percentage is high, but the dollar differential between water rate option 1 and 2 isn't that big. Yes, the percentage is high, but the dollar impact to the bill isn't as much. But it does a lot for our utility in terms of funding a $130 million program to rehabilitate our reservoirs. So how do we compare to other agencies with this rate increase? You can see we're kind of right in the middle right now. The yellow bar is currently where we sit in comparison to other utilities around us. With this rate increase, keep in mind that a lot of the water utilities already raised their rates early this year in January. With this rate increase to take effective in July, you see the 190 going up to about 229, 230. We're still about middle of the pack. We overtake Long Beach and Pasadena, but we're still relatively more affordable for single family compared to Culver City, City of LA, and Beverly Hills next to us. Multifamily, similar. It will go up, but we kind of stay where we're at right now. We're still below Pasadena, Beverly Hills, Culver City, and LA DWP. We understand that it is a heavy lift and an ask of our residents with this rate increase. However, we do have new tools to help you better budget your utility bill. The rate increase only goes up if you're maintaining the same water use. With the completion of our advanced water metering infrastructure, or AMI, our customers have the ability to look at their water use in real time, every hour, right? They could get this pushed to their phone through an app or a web portal to look at their water, how much of water you're using and when, to better budget how they use their water and how does that impact their utility bill. So we think this is a great tool to help our customers to be able to understand their bill better. Before, you get a paper bill from us every 2 months, right? So if you had a leak, you wouldn't know about it until you get your utility bill. With this, we also have real-time leak detection, right? That will alert you right away if you have a leak, so you can start looking for it to resolve that leak sooner than seeing it, on your 2-month bill. The other thing we're asking for support is to maintain the current low-income assistance program. Our customers will qualify by showing proof that they qualify for low-income assistance with either SoCal Gas or SoCal Edison. The existing program funding is a reduction of $1 per HCF on the Tier 1 water rate as well as the wastewater rate. Currently, this is subsidized by the general fund, so we don't violate Prop 218. On the water side, the general fund transfer about $114, $115K per year. On the wastewater side, it's about $40, $50K per year to subsidize our low-income residents. Lastly is our schedule, right? Tonight, we're here at the Sustainability Commission. Next Tuesday is our council study session. After that, we will start our public engagement going to all the neighborhood groups. We will have general public meetings in May, an open house. We're gonna go talk to downtown Santa Monica Chamber of Commerce. If all goes well, next Tuesday, we will be preparing our Prop 218 notices and the rate study report that'll be issued April 11th. Our current council rate adoption public hearing is scheduled for June 10th, 2025. If that's adopted on June 10th, this will be effect in July 1st, 2025. So the key input for tonight would be, obviously on the 2 rate options on the water side, to maintain the low income assistance program and maintain our drought rate structure. I didn't cover much on the last one. Essentially is the current practice is if there's a statewide mandate of 10% cut or 20% cut, the volumetric rates will go up by that amount, 10%, to cover the revenue gap. And thank you for staying with me for, I don't know how long it took me. 30 minutes, it's counting, so out here. So thank you.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I missed that. What? Oh, okay. Thank you. Commissioners, any questions? Go ahead, David.
Hey, Sonny, thanks for the presentation. As always, where do you get the app that you just mentioned?
It's Ion Water. We haven't done the full public outreach. We have not, because we're waiting for everything to finish to launch the public outreach for that. But if you already have your meter replaced with the AMI, there should have been a door tag with some instructions. And feel free to contact us and also the billing department in the city. We'd be happy to help you set up that portal.
Could you just repeat the name of that again? I Want Water?
I on water. Not I want water, but I on water. I mean, if you guys are interested afterwards, I have it on my phone. I can show you guys.
Yeah, if you could do that, that would be great.
Yeah, thank you. Ashley?
Could I get a copy of this presentation? It was really informative and helpful.
Sure. There's a reason why I didn't. There was a lot of asks like, Sunny, I didn't do this ahead of time and stuff. There's a reason why, because it hasn't gone to the council study session.
Oh, gotcha.
This will be made publicly available with the council agenda by the end of the week.
Okay, then fine.
Yeah, I'll just give some background on that. It used to be the standard practice that staff would bring detailed analysis, draft staff reports, draft ordinances, et cetera, to this commission and to others. But it became the opinion of our city attorney that those things shouldn't become public until they were presented to the council first, since it was the intended audience. So that's what we are all navigating through now. So.
And my other question, which isn't directly on topic, but I mean, everybody knows the fires, and obviously you say this increase versus the risk of having one of our reservoirs offline during a while. I think that sends terror across everybody's, like, you know, just worried about that. But what was the impact to our water supply or drinking water when it came to that happened in the Palisades fire?
None, other than
That's what I thought.
I guess we didn't have any sleep during that time for like a week. If you're interested, I'm happy to share some of the details and some of the challenges I think us as an industry face. First and foremost, our municipal water systems are not designed to fight wildfires, right? If you look at wildfires, how they're put out is you contain it and you let itself burn out when it runs out of fuel. You can't put it out with water, right? My brother-in-law is a fire chief. He was over at the Eden Fire during this time. We were trading texts about what we could do. What we also understood is the limitations of our system. Tuesday morning was kind of the perfect storm when that fire started, because how most utility operates our system is we let the reservoirs drain over the weekend, because we can't keep the reservoir full all the time because we have to cycle that water to maintain water quality. So we usually fill it on a Friday, right? And then let it ride out the weekend when there's higher demand. And on Monday, Tuesday, we start filling back up. Tuesday morning, we were in the process of filling back our reservoirs. All of them were probably about a quarter full when the fire broke out. We were watching it on the news. I was actually at a treatment plant that day. Around noon, that's when it's like, oh man, this is getting serious. So I gave the direction to our operators, like, look, bring in 100% water to fill it up as fast as you can. But to fill 3 reservoirs out of the 4 took 27 hours, right? That's just the pipe size. You could only push so much water through our infrastructure to fill these reservoirs. Right. The other limitation we understood, I'm sure you guys saw in the news, that fire hydrants were running dry. Right. So we quickly done some math that afternoon. The DNOS actually left. I kept her until midnight that day running some calcs with me to understand what that limitation is. To share with you guys that what that fact is for our system, every system is a little different. We can only supply 9 fire hydrants. You're probably thinking, like, what the 9, right? Fire hydrants. We can only have 9 fire hydrants open at any given time. Not 10, 9. You're probably thinking, like, at first when I did that calc, I thought it was per pressure zone. But no, it's across the whole city. But to put that in perspective for everyone, 9 fire hydrants could put out enough water that feeds 2 times our total city daily demand. It could put out 20 million gallons per day of water, right, out of 9 fire hydrants. And if you look at our reservoir, we could sustain that for between 20 to 30 hours. After that, I need everyone to stop using water so I could bring up enough water just to feed the 9 fire hydrants, right? So when we got that information, we quickly worked with the fire department to let them know what our limitations are so they could then strategically place themselves on where do we need a position to defend our city in the northern border, right? So those are things that we learned quickly that day. So when I mentioned SWIP, we ramped that up to 100% as well that time. So in case we need to fill water trucks, we could fill that without impacting our potable side that we're bringing 100%. And I go back, that's also the perfect storm because that's January, winter time. Typically, we do major maintenance. So our imported water supplier actually had one of their major facilities, treatment plants, the Jensen plants, down for maintenance. So we were actually limited in imported supply as well during that time. So we scrambled to get 100% capacity from a local groundwater, imported water supply in our system. We ramped up our recycled water to be ready. And we sat like that, operating at full reservoir levels for over 2 weeks, which is quite challenging for us to maintain those conditions, especially when we lose power at one of the reservoir because it was in the mandatory evac zone. Our operators had to go there into evac zones to operate manually and come out. So those are things I joke, we're not first responders, right? But we're the second responders.
I'm going to ask another question out of curiosity. What if we need to use 10 or 11 or 12 hydrants at the same time to fight? I mean, if you
So
saw
there's
the fight.
so you saw how our system is set up with those fours reservoir supply pressure. When you open that 10th or 11, you don't have enough pressure left to be able to fight fires because you need a minimum of 35 psi to come out of the hydrants. When you open that 10th one or 11th one, it would drop below that, so the water can't really shoot out anymore. And one more fact that I'd like to put out there for the public too is you hear people say, oh, I use my hose bib to wet down my house and it saved my house. But get this, if 500 homes did that, there would be no water left in our system for our hydrants. So it's kind of like, do you want the firefighters to have it or do you want a hose bib to save maybe one house on the whole block, right? You're welcome.
Thank you so much. During your talk, the thing that was swirling around in the back of my head the whole time was this thought that the general fund for the city does not contribute to your budget at all.
That's correct.
And I guess part of what I was swirling around about is like, what are the benefits of that? Perhaps autonomy. What are the pitfalls? Is there any reason why one should argue to change that? I'm just kind of curious to see if there's a way to get funding from another source in order to combat the rate changes.
It's funny, it's actually the other way around that people are usually thinking is how do we figure out a way to leverage the enterprise fund more to help the general fund. That's why Prop 218 was put in place to make sure that you don't use ratepayer funds for anything other than the water, wastewater infrastructure.
Okay.
Because, yeah, it's actually the other problem. There's agencies out there that misuse funds and transfer it into the general fund and vice versa. I didn't name anybody. But we are, because of that, we are in very good financial standing as well. We're a AAA rated enterprise fund. That's pretty rare for a enterprise fund in a city government to be AAA rated. So we're in very good financial standing for both of our funds.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. I'm not familiar with all of that detail, so I appreciate that. Anything else? Okay. Anybody in the public have a question or comment? If you could go up to the microphone, please. And you don't need to stay in your seat until I call on you. Please just go to the microphone.
Support.
One question, great presentation, by the way. But early on, you mentioned the transfer of unrestricted settlement funds, about $40 million to the general fund.
Yeah.
My question is, are you expecting to get that back?
Well, that's a very good question. That 40 mil, I'm not up there, but that's the higher level decision than me. We did also loan another 15 million to the general fund subsequently, and that will be repaid. The 15 million, that 40 million, the understanding is that the city owns the pollution, not the ratepayers. So meaning the remediation activity at the Olympic well field, when it gets to that point where we're out of settlement funds for that, the city takes ownership of that. That is our understanding, but that's 20, 30 years out, at least.
But for the next budget cycle, the folks that met on Saturday, they don't need to come back to you with 40 million.
No, no, yeah. I think there's a blue light to make sure the mic's on, I think.
Oh, it's blue, thanks. Is there anything that residents of the city can do in their behavioral lives that would be significant to address these numbers? I mean, barring what people already do to try to conserve water, is there anything that people can do?
Yeah, I think is with the AMI tool that I mentioned, I think is really to pay attention and use that, because one could think that yes, I'm doing what I can to be water efficient and conserve water, but this actually gives you the data to tell you if you're actually doing that. For example, we tell our customers that make sure you run a full load of laundry, right? Because that's about 30 to 45 gallons of use. Load your dishwasher when it's full, because that's also about 45, 50 gallons of use. Showers, right? If you have teenagers, they'll have long showers. That's about a penny, 2 pennies a minute, right? So it adds up over time. So I think just being more conscious of what you use, how that impacts your bill, and paying attention to the data to inform that now. I think I would definitely recommend that. Now we have provided the capability to look at real-time data on your water use for your own bill. You're welcome.
A general comment, given that you're relying a lot on EPA, I think once you give us the rate shock of 20% in the first year, you ought to keep going, because I don't.
Can you come with me to every neighborhood meeting that I need to go to? I would welcome the support.
I'm just saying, and I know that infrastructure, which is buried and nobody knows it's there, always gets deferred, and we pay for that down the road when it breaks. And so being more aggressive about staying on top of all that is the way to go.
I mean, that's a very, very good comment, right? If you look at water and wastewater, when do you ever talk about or hear about it? When there's a water main break. I think our team here does a very good job. When was the last time you heard us in the news with a main break, a sinkhole, a sewer overflow in the ocean? Not in the 6 years that I've been here at the minimum, right? But to give you an example, there was one day in the city we had 5 water main breaks. I remember the former city manager, Dave White, called me on his morning run. He's like, Sonny, there's a main break here. I was like, yeah, I know, but that's the least critical of the 5 that I got. That's just gonna have to wait. We isolated, but that never made the news. The news vans were here ready to make that a bigger deal than it was, but we were able to resolve all 5 within 24 hours with only 3 teams. That's all I have is 3 distribution teams. Our wastewater guys are more than happy. They jumped in and helped out as well. We had a potential sewer overflow event to the Pacific Ocean under the pier. Our staff worked diligently. We responded, I think, over 12, 14 hours. We tried many different things. But the end result, you guys heard the electrical talk earlier. We had to convince some of our electrical contractor and our staff to work with 480 volt live to prevent that. I mean, it's almost suicidal to do that. But we understood the repercussions of what would happen if we didn't, what kind of environmental disaster we'd be dealing with, right? So to your point, yeah, it's an appreciated asset until it becomes a problem. Then everybody's like, oh, you didn't do your job. This failed because of you, but it's our reluctance to invest in the infrastructure that's taking us there. So thank you for that.
One question about your leak detection. So I have a 1940s house, and I've been trying to get the shower valve replaced. I've replaced it twice, but I can't get it to seat right. So I know I have a nice leak. Your system doesn't see it. So I don't know what the threshold is, because it's a brand new. You
could actually set
it's a brand new meter.
Yeah, so you could. So on that app, you could set the different sensitivity. I think the default's like 5 gallons a minute.
Okay.
But you could take it lower to 1. Like I have mine set on 1. I live in a 12-unit complex here in Santa Monica. You can see somebody flush the toilet at 3 in the morning because it only uses 1.2 gallons. That's how accurate these meters are. So it should be able to detect. What could happen is, because the leak detection establishes a baseline. So if that leak has been happening for some time, it's part of that baseline, unfortunately, because it needs to kind of have machine learning to establish that baseline first, and anything out of the ordinary, then they will detect it as a leak.
So are you relying on the customer to look at the app to figure out whether they have a leak? Or is the city gonna tell the customer, hey, you've got a leak, we'd like to come out and help you find it?
The
Because I
second one
guarantee
we're
you,
working
every
on.
one of us has a leak in our house.
Yeah, so
Everyone's
you gotta
flapper
imagine,
is
that's
old.
something we're discussing internally. Maybe it's like a robocall that we have that, it'll push it to an automatic dialer that'll call the customer to alert them a leak or maybe send you an email. So we're looking into that. But if you're asking for, me to call you or one of my staff, that's a little more challenging because we have 2 billing staff and limited admin that there's nobody actually dedicated to look at this data all the time. We get alerts and we do our best with the larger ones to call the customer right away. But yeah, we're kind of relying on the customers to pay attention as well. So if you go to the app, if you set up the phone app, it does detect a leak. It sends you push notifications to alert you on your phone that you have a leak that's over the baseline.
So you kind of push the responsibility onto the end user, and because I know there is software for these systems that will automatically send an email or a text message and saying, hey, we think you have a problem. Can we help you?
We're looking into setting that up. I can't promise you anything because, like I said, we just finished a project last month, and now it's the implementation on the customer side, the outreach, and what tools we have, because we have to work with the IT department to push that out as well.
I know.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I would love to redirect the conversation to the rates if we could, and we have a question over here.
Yeah, so I was reminded of this by a question that was asked earlier, but is there any tension between community-wide conservation efforts and the need to recoup funds? Like you're raising the rates 20%, but obviously if everyone cuts down their water use 20%, you're not going to recoup the funds that you need to do.
I mean, you hit the nail on the head. I mean, that's the biggest challenge, right? We're not going to be able to meet revenue targets when you conserve more and more water. Who's in the business to sell you something and convince you not to use as much at the same time, right? That's me. I mean, ideally, the rate structure would be you collect enough fixed to cover that fixed operation cost. The rest is truly law of metrics. So the rate structure really needs to be the other way around. But then how do you encourage conservation? So we're in that tough middle ground where we need a behavioral shift.
Yeah.
We're not looking at forcing. I think the city as a whole, we've done a great job in conservation. We're ahead of the state target. We're ahead of our neighbors. What's next is behavioral changes, right? If you talk to my interns that's in their 20s, they love taking 20, 30-minute shower. My 8-year-old son could get in and out in less than 5 minutes, right? If you talk to Jerry Rubin, he could take a shower in less than a minute, right? We have these exchanges. It has to be that behavioral shift. If you go to other parts of the world where the resource has run out, they're more appreciative of that source. And I think that's the next step is behavioral shift to understand the value of water so we could actually charge the true value of water. And you have to think of, because of Prop 218, the cost of service, we use it to drink, to cook, to bathe, but there's industry out there that turns around and makes a profit off of it, right? Is that fair? So I think from a structural standpoint, that needs to change as well, right? Somebody could I could put this as a penny a gallon, put it in a bottle, sell for $1 a gallon without even treating it again. Nobody would know the difference, right? So I think down the road is the structure and the behavioral change needs to happen for us as a whole. You're welcome.
I also think that Dinesh hit on that, right? Like she talked about the cost of conservation and how the conservation numbers are built into their water supply and demand assessment. And you sort of factor in, right, like that 20% conservation rate as a way to reduce the amount of water that they either need to import from volatile markets or produce with these infrastructure projects. So it's even more complicated tension.
Yeah, thanks, Shannon.
Oh, go ahead. I have to leave. My dog needs to go home. I want to urge you to agree with the rate increase. And I've been doing this for how many years? And it is kind of hard to raise everybody's water bill, but it's really important that this happen and that we do it in such a way a smart way, and Sonny is one of the smartest people I know, and he knows how to make it work. So trust him.
Thank you, Judy.
Ashley?
I have heard very wonderful things about you from pretty much everybody universally. So
Thank you.
my question was, and I might have misunderstood when we were talking about giving money back to the general fund, like $15 million. Was that?
It was a loan.
Oh, loan.
It was a loan.
Is that a loan that's actually going to get paid back?
I hope so. It's documented, so I hope so.
Those are two different things, but okay.
But once again, I'm not privy to the higher level conversations that take place.
So Sunny, I want to make sure I understand the action that you're asking us for.
Yeah,
and
sorry I didn't put that as a slide. I think
No, it's
the
okay.
action is support of water rate option one.
Okay.
To maintain the low income assistance program and also to maintain the drought rate structure as we go to the study session next
Okay,
Tuesday.
so rate option one, maintain the low-income assistance and maintain the drought rate structure.
Yep.
Happy to entertain a motion here to support those things.
I'll give a motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you for your time.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you, Sunny. It's a lot of hard work.
You're welcome.
Moving on to administrative items, we have a training update and Earth Month celebrations. Is that from Clove? Please talk into your microphone.
I'm so sorry, everyone. I really deserve that. I just want the public to be able to hear us. Okay, so April is coming up. It is Earth Month, Arts Month, and National Poetry Month. We have an amazing Earth Day celebration on April 22nd from 3:30 to 5:30 at the main library. California Climate Action Corps Fellows will be there. Santa Monica Community Garden, OSCE, will be there, planting native milkweed and working with the community. Camera Obscura Artists, that's our Cultural Affairs Division, will be doing collage and assemblage workshops, and Urban Forest Team will give a talk on the importance of trees, and our Santa Monica Poet Laureate, Anne Carmack, will do a workshop, Poems for the Planet. So please come, please spread the word. Also, the SQA Awards are coming up. The Sustainable Quality Awards, which is OSE, will be giving, and Sustainable Works, will have their ceremony on April 30th, 2025 at the Annenberg Community Beach House from 4:30 to 7. Everyone is welcome, and it's going to be a really wonderful evening. So thank you so much. Oh, also wanted to commend all of you on getting your trainings done. Trainings are in process, and there's lots of progress, and I really appreciate it.
I have done so many trainings, I don't even remember if I did them, to be honest. Like for so many different institutions and stuff, I'm just like, did I? I don't know.
We really understand, and we really appreciate you doing them all over again for the city of Santa Monica.
Is there a way to check? Okay.
I will be sending out emails to you guys with an update, but I'm waiting for, David and Robert are still working on stuff, so I'm going to give them a little more time and send some stuff out next week.
Okay, thank you. And I know you're working on our emails as well. Thank you for that. Okay, so with that, I don't think we have to vote for this, so let's just adjourn right now. 9:23. Woohoo! Thanks, everyone. Have a good night. Happy St. Patty's Day.